Hello, everyone, and welcome to WonderCon at Home panel, Gay Geeks and Where to Find Them. Ooh, she's already having issues. This is the second year that we've done WonderCon at home, so I hope everybody is being safe, and I hope everyone is well. We miss all your faces. We all miss seeing each other. But today we are here to talk about the Gay Geeks, us, and where you can find them in the industry and just online. Thank you everyone for coming today. We're going to start off with our panelists. First off, we have the host of House of X podcast, Dylan Carter.
Hi everyone, my name is Dylan Carter. I have a podcast that's called the House of X podcast. It talks about anything X-Men related. It started from a Facebook group with the same name, House of X. It got so popular, and a co-admin of mine, we just like talking about comics all the time, so we started a podcast. And yeah, we just like to talk about new comics, and then we do random fandom episodes where we talk to comic book writers, artists, cosplayers, and we've actually had one of the other panelists on our show. So yeah, if you like X-Men, look up House of X anything and you'll probably find me.
That's so awesome. And how long have you been doing the podcast for?
Actually, I've only been doing the podcast since last summer. The pandemic kind of caused me to want to do something since I was stuck at home. So yeah.
New hobbies seem to be the very popular option last year. So awesome. I've listened to the podcast and I love it. I love that you're so passionate about the X-Men.
Thanks.
And moving right on down, we've got Twitch partner and streamer, Jeff Brutlag.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Jeff Brutlag. I am a gay streamer, writer. Typically on the channel, we do lots of different kinds of story-driven games. Been doing a lot of horror games as of late. Nintendo games. Sometimes we do some simulation games, depending on what it is. Like we've done a ton of Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. But we're mainly about making sure that we are keeping a cozy, safe space on the platform. Primarily for the queer community, but honestly, anybody who needs a good safe space is welcome. And I've been doing that for, oh my gosh, almost 4 years now. So it's been a wild ride, but I've loved every bit of it.
I've been following you for a couple of years on Twitch now, and I've loved being able to see how it's grown in your community and the people that come in. It's always really fun, and it is such a super safe space. And I love that anytime you get some kind of hater, you handle it so well and so funny.
Listen, I mean, with how long I've been just on the internet in general, like having seen so many different troll comments, like I get time to just think about it. So at this point, I'm just kind of like, I have a response for most people that want to come in and say something. And the trolls on Twitch aren't even really smart. So they say things that are really easy to work with.
That's awesome. I just really love how you handled it, because sometimes I would want to get upset, but you're just like, oh, I'm gay. Newsflash.
Yeah, no, it's just about taking their power from them. That's all it is.
That's awesome. We are going to move right on down to Dr. Darcie Little Badger. Welcome, Darcie.
Hello. Thanks for having me on this panel. I'm so excited to talk with everyone. Wait, can you see me?
Oh. Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'll keep going. My Zoom's messed up. I'm actually a writer of science fiction, fantasy, long fiction, short fiction, and comics. And I do have to mention that I was the guest on Dylan's podcast because I wrote Danny Moonstar for Marvel's Indigenous Voices #1. So yeah, there's a couple more comics projects in the works that I can't talk about right now, but it's just really cool to connect with everyone here.
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited to see what's coming out. Those darn NDAs.
Yes, the NDAs. That's for me the hardest part about being a writer is there's so many things I wish I could talk about, but I have to wait. But it's probably a good thing because you never know what happens in the future. Got to keep everything secret until the announcement.
Always, always. It's how they get you, but it's always well worth the wait.
Thank you.
Right next to Dr. Darcie, we have another writer. We have Amanda Deibert with us.
Hi, I am Amanda Deibert. I write for television and comic books. Right now I've been writing for Netflix's new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe animated series, which I'm really excited about. And I do a bunch of comic books, a lot for DC, like DC Superhero Girls and Teen Titans Go and Wonder Woman 77, and then some John Carpenter's Tales for Halloween Night, which my wife Kat Staggs illustrates the stories that we do together with that. And then for like some specifically LGBTQ content that I have coming up, my wife Kat and I did a story together in DC's Wonderful Women of History about Edie Windsor and her historic Supreme Court case and what that did for equality for specifically, like gay and lesbian marriage. And then I also have the graphic novel Work for a Million, which is an adaptation of Eve Zarumba's lesbian detective noir series. And it is like a gritty, sexy lesbian noir book that's coming out with McClellan and Stewart and Penguin Random House this summer. So, yay.
Awesome. That sounds so great. I can't wait to read that one.
It was really, really fun.
It's so great that you get to work with your partner on projects like this as well.
I love it. It's, we have such like a shorthand, so it's nice. And plus I can just like peek over her shoulder now.
Give her notes and you're like, it needs to be a little bit cleaner, love. A little bit more gruesome, a little bit more blood right here, maybe. All right, and last and certainly not least, we have just one of the premier LGBTQIA cosplayers. We've got SuperXLuigi with us today.
Yes, I'm SuperXLuigi. I've been cosplaying for 6 years. Haven't been doing much this year because of the pandemic, but I cosplay everything from Marvel to DC, video games, just pop culture. My favorite is the X-Men, so I know some people already in here.
I want to talk about that since we have brought that up, but before we get to that, also, I am Julian Jetson. You're a moderator for today's panel. Thank you guys all for coming again today. I'm really excited to just really gay geek out with you guys today. And we use the term gay geek, but this is a spot and safe space for LGBTQIA, complete spectrum, plus allies. If you love us, you love us. If you don't, there's still room for you here. So I want to talk about a lot of different things today, but the first thing I want to talk about is apparently there is such a big love of X-Men in the gay community, and I want to talk about that. Let's start with so many options. Dylan, let's start with you since you have the podcast. What is it about the X-Men that you identify with and that you love?
Well, sorry, I think my answer is probably going to be a lot of people's answers because I think a lot of queer people, like myself being gay, we love the X-Men because they are born different. And in comics, everyone hates them because they're different. So that's something that all of us can relate to. And of course, that makes them my number one superheroes.
Who's your favorite X-Men?
It's an X-Man named Warpath. It's why my name online is Warpath Dylan. So yeah.
And what about you, Darcie? Is it the same thing with the X-Men for you?
Oh yeah, and I have to say also, so I wrote Danny, and I've discussed this before. Danny actually has this relationship with Wolfsbane that when I was reading growing up, I really coded that as kind of this queer romance. And of course, that it's okay if you think it's platonic, but for me, that was almost validating. So I see that a lot with these comics. And if I had to choose a favorite X-Men, this is hard because there's so many good ones. When I was a kid, I know this is a very common answer, but I really like Nightcrawler. And now I just really can't choose. Obviously, I love Danny. But I do like Nightcrawler, and yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
There you go. Those are both great answers. Those are both great answers. What about you, Amanda? Are you a big X-Men fan?
I am. I mean, I don't have the level of expertise that many here do, but I think that like Storm was probably one of my early crushes, like even before I really understood why I loved to look at Storm.
She was one of my crushes too before I even knew that I liked boys. It's okay.
I mean, yeah, she was definitely like a gateway for me understanding myself. So she's always gonna have, you know, she's my top place in my heart.
And how about you, Jeff? What's your X-Men? Are you a big one as well, or are you just like, they're all right?
No, I really liked X-Men. It's not like something I have a vast knowledge in. I think it's like I've kept up on the movies that have been coming out since, you know, they've been big. But I think it's such a great narrative, an allegory for what it means to be like in a marginalized community. I know it was like specifically written with the Black perspective in mind. But like really it can be applied to so many different like marginalized communities where like, you know, generally like the world looks down upon them, but then like even within the community itself, there's some kind of like infighting and ways that they feel like works best for their own equality. And I think that is just such a powerful metaphor for that it's really great that that exists.
I agree. That was something I actually really connected with as a kid too. Was the same thing. Was seeing the idea that because I'm part Black, was like that's how I started to see the X-Men series. And as I got older, I was like, oh, it's actually like also a very good analogy for LGBT and other things. Just that minority group, and we are who we are, and there's always going to be haters. And I love that aspect about it. What about you, Luigi? Who is your favorite? I know some of your favorites to cosplay, but who are your favorites?
So my favorite character is Kitty Pryde because I fell in love with the Excalibur series where the X-Men kind of die except Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde. And I especially love their relationship. And they went over to England and they had their own superhero team over there. So I really related to them in that story. So Excalibur is like really close to my heart. And then Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde, Megan, Captain Britain, who's not technically a mutant, but I still consider him part of the mutant family. I love Excalibur, but my top X-Men crush would probably, is either between Gambit or Cyclops. I can't decide. Like, they're just animated series. I was rewatching it and I'm like, this show's pretty gay.
Some of those comic books back then, the way they drew some of those men, it's kind of like you gave us men with bulging pecs and arms in spandex, and you're wondering that I was gay? With strong female characters like Storm, I remember being like, she's not one to be messed with. She is not one to be messed with. She's always bringing on all of the winds, all of the storms, no pun intended. I do love that X-Men has become this common ground, I think, for a lot of LGBTQIA. I feel like because not just the story, but the diversity that's in it, we see throughout the years, we've gotten more representation across comics as well of ethnicities and sexualities and minorities. Are there any other favorites that come to mind when you think of representation where you feel very represented? I want to start with Amanda.
Representation where I feel very represented.
Yeah, like because back then we had to like kind of pick and choose and find something, and nowadays we're getting so much more representation. We're getting so many more voices brought to the table in writing and art. What are other things that you feel like are doing that job nowadays of giving us everyone that kind of representation?
I think that I'm loving the first thing that like popped into my head, which is such a funny thing to say, but like, is that the CW is doing such an amazing job with all their superhero shows. Like they have been like just in their whole Arrowverse, they have been so amazingly inclusive. And I think leagues ahead of what a lot of other media is doing in the fact that you see like sexual orientation and gender and racial diversity in all of their shows across the board. And that's been something that's been really exciting for me. I mean, I personally love Batwoman very much, and I'm excited about that going on. But I mean, you know, you saw it even in shows like Supergirl, where there were lots of things going on with representation. And I think just in general, things are getting so much better, and it's so exciting. It's a really exciting time to consume. And I'm also a mother, and something that's been really exciting for me, because my wife and I have a 6-year-old, is that even in little kid cartoons now, there are diversity of relationships and sexual orientation in a way that I've never seen before. Like, she'll just be watching and like won't think it's any big deal when like She-Ra gets super, 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 super queer, and I'm like crying. She's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "You don't understand. I didn't have it."
Exactly.
Like, it's just like my life. It's like you and Mama.
It's, you know, because you were writing on the new, you said He-Man and Masters of the Universe cartoon, which is not the one that is also the Netflix Kevin Smith one.
It's not the Kevin Smith. So Netflix is doing 2 He-Man, which is so confusing. And neither is released yet. Both are in like production right now. So I get a lot of questions about the Kevin Smith one. And then I'm like, I have no idea what's happening with that. It seems like it's going great.
You're like, yeah, he's just such a great guy to work with.
Never met him.
Because it's interesting. How does it make you feel as a lesbian writer with representation, where we had a show of He-Man that was very much directed to little boys, that gave us She-Ra, which, you know, decades later gave us the new She-Ra, which was so much very queer and inclusive. And now you get to write on the new He-Man. What is that like?
I mean, it's amazing. I wish that I could say a lot, because obviously I can't, because NDAs are fun. But it's you know, it's always cool to be part of something that kind of like touches on nostalgia. You know, to take something that maybe we grew up with, or people have a lot of, you know, love for, and get to reinvent it. And so, like, you know, some things you want to stay true to and keep very classic and keep very the spirit of, because obviously, you know, we're all fans of these properties for a reason. Like, they work and we love them for particular reasons, and you don't want to mess with that. But it's also fun to change things and to shake things up and to make things, you know, modern and more representative of the world that we're living in now. So it's a fun challenge. It's an exciting thing to be a part of. Plus, it's fun to work on something that no one has seen, but everyone is familiar with at the same time. So you could be like, He-Man, people are like, oh yeah, I know what that is.
Exactly. I'm really excited to see it. I after She-Ra, and I know it's not connected, right? It's just another individual installment.
Yeah, so there's nothing, so like, I loved She-Ra too, but loving She-Ra has nothing to do with whether or not you will love this, because they're not, it's like, it's different companies, it's a different animation style. Like, they're even though the characters are, you know, related in canon, they're not actually related shows at all.
I think it's going to be a hit. I mean, the fact that He-Man has been around for so long, and I feel like He-Man has had such a large gay following. I know lots of, like, I don't want to say older, but the older gay men that, you know, when they grew up with He-Man, they were like, look at these beefcakes and harnesses. Like, what did they think they were giving us? So,
I mean, yeah, that harness was a vibe.
That was a serious vibe. And it's almost always, I see a lot of gay men who do the cosplay of He-Man. I'm like, there's just something right about this. And Skeletor, like, this is just great. Gay icons almost, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, speaking of gay icons, to go back to also mutants, I'm sorry, but I just have to say, it was Agatha all along.
Oh
I don't know
God.
what
I've had
it
that
was.
song stuck in my head all week.
Me too.
I'm pretty sure
It has been
everyone does.
so great seeing the memes, but it's funny how that one moment everybody's all like automatically gay icon status. Why do you think that is? Let's start with Darcie. Why do you think something like that was people like pick characters and they go gay icon? There's just something about them.
I've gotta point out first that I have not seen WandaVision yet, but I've been following it really closely. So I definitely know that reference. But, This is something that actually I talk about a lot with my like LGBTQ sci-fi fantasy writer friends, because a lot of us think back on, for example, Disney movies where we were really associated with the villains. And that's like, historically, there's so many of these just interesting, complex, queer-coded villains. And it was almost a tendency like, oh, look at how bad they are. You don't want to be like this. But we kind of latched on to them as like signs of empowerment, like, oh no, this is really cool. What's the phrase? Be gay, do crime, or something like that.
Yeah.
So that might be one reason. Agatha's naughty, right? She's based on the Agatha in the comics. I'm gonna say, okay, that kind of falls into that too. But yeah, I'm not sure why some characters in particular like really resonate with us, but I definitely see this happening time and time again. And it's really cool that they're often just like these really interesting characters, like so like multifaceted. And yeah, they're a little bit evil, but that's just part of their complexity.
I agree. It's kind of like with I feel like Endora back in the day, like well, not even just Endora, but also Samantha. Like Bewitched was a gay icon show, and it's like there wasn't really anything necessarily queer about it, other than Uncle Arthur, really. But like it's just things like that like we just grasp onto, and I have a feeling it's like with these characters, there's just something, a strength about them, because like Endora, that people want to put her in a box, and she's like, I'm not a box. I am not a box. You cannot put me in a box. This is not me. And I think that's kind of one of the things that we kind of like grab onto, because that was something we all had to find growing up, the characters that made us feel strong.
Yeah,
And I got it. Oh, go on.
I was just gonna say, I think we gravitate towards them because they are getting to be, they are their true selves. So they're just doing what they want whenever they want. And I think we gravitate and grasp it because for most of us, we had a childhood where we couldn't be what we wanted to be. And so we see this person that just does whatever they want, whether it's good or bad. So that's why we gravitate towards them.
Yeah, and I was kind of actually thinking, playing into what you just said, the most recent character I kind of did this to was Into the Spiral. It was Olivia Octavia. So this female version of Doc Ock. I don't know. I think there was something going on between her and Spider-Man. But that's the kind of, I felt like seeing her as a scientist. I have a PhD in oceanography. I basically assembled the transcriptomes of phytoplankton species. So that's genetics, you know. So I do have this kind of STEM background, and just being a woman in STEM is just another layer of it's so lonesome sometimes. And just seeing this character who was just like, she didn't fall for Peter Parker's seduction or anything like that. She basically did what she wanted all the way from beginning to end. Like she was her own villain. And I was just thinking about how I just almost unconsciously kind of projected myself onto this character. I hope she comes back. Honestly.
Jeff, someone who plays a lot of, video games, sometimes I see you add these connotations to some of the things you're playing, but it always just seems to be very accurate. What are some games that you think kind of have those like subtleties where you're like, this character could be gay, and seeing that type of representation in games?
Oh God, how long do we have? Because I can list so many where like, I'm sure the developers did not think like it was gonna be gay. And then I see that and I was like, oh, that's very gay. Like, it's just like, there's so many, like, I think it comes from like, just us wanting to insert ourselves into these universes. Like a lot of us grew up just not actually seeing ourselves there. So like now I see everything and I'm just like, that's gay, that's very gay. Like, it's just, why not? Like there's really nothing harmful about it. So I'm just gonna say everything's gay, and then if you don't like it, well, not my problem.
I do love listening to that commentary when you're streaming, because you do add on like these stories onto these characters. It's like, I could see that totally happening. I could totally see this if this is believable. And I think it's always fun, that interpretation too, especially with games like, I think, is it Skyrim? The developers kind of gave you like anything that you could do. And one of my friends was playing, he goes, oh yeah, he's like, so this is like my partner. This is my husband that I live with in the cottage. These are our adopted kids. I'm all, you can do that? He goes, oh yeah. Oh yeah, he's all, look at our dogs. They're like wolves. That's totally what our house pets. And I love seeing that type of representation of video games.
Yeah, it's beautiful because I think it's such an immersive medium that like when you represent the community in there, like you really feel like you're there, like kind of either living the experience along with them or just like, you know, getting to experience what it's like to be this identity in that world. I think it's great.
I think so too. It's always really fun to watch you just stream, honestly. You make it very interactive, and clearly it's very necessary in the community when you see the reactions, the way that people are. It's really heartwarming. What made you want to start streaming to begin with? I want to ask.
Well, I was actually doing YouTube to start when it came to like producing video content, and it just wasn't getting like the kind of engagement that I wanted. But when it came to Twitch, you know, it's so gaming based to the point where like it's been something that I've been doing since I was like 5 years old. So the idea of creating a community around video games really appealed to me. So then from there, it just kind of grew into more like, you know, whereas it first started as like, I want to play the games I love in front of like an audience. It kind of turned into more of a big community building thing where now it's kind of taken on more of a life than just gaming, but it's nice to really have that like that underlying passion for representation in gaming.
I agree. I think it's really fun to watch people enjoy doing the things that they do. To segue from that, I want to go into Luigi. You really enjoy these characters that we grow up with and, you know, in comic books, and you enjoy getting to showcase them in cosplay. What was it that brought you into cosplay to start?
So I think like a lot of gay people were really into Halloween because you get to like be somebody else, and kind of like growing up, it's like always you have as a LGBT person, you kind of grow up with a mask. So when you're out and like it's like Halloween and you get to like it's like our time. And so I always went all out for Halloween, and then I'm a huge geek, so there was like conventions and stuff, and I went to my first convention. I was like, there's people who like dress up and it's not Halloween, and this is like amazing because I want to dress up. I don't want to just dress up on Halloween. I want to dress up all the time. So after my first convention, seeing all these cosplayers, I was bit by the cosplay bug, and it was just downhill from there for me. And I think I have like over like 50 costumes now. And spend a lot of my free time on planning costumes, making costumes. I've like learned how to sew, learned how to craft with foam and paint, and I learned all these skills that I never had before cosplay.
As you were saying that in my head, I was just thinking, in essence, it made you more gay.
Yes, definitely more gay.
Who are some of your favorite characters that you love to cosplay? Because I've seen some that you rotate, but I know that there's always going to be those core ones that you love to do.
So I love to cosplay. So like I have like brown hair. So like going with characters that kind of like, being a male, it's like really like hard to find a good male wig. So like cosplaying the blonde characters or whatnot, I can get away with like darker haired characters, but like cosplaying a blonde character, no matter how much I love them, it just doesn't look great with a wig. So I mean like Cyclops, Gambit, because I love the X-Men, Green Lantern, Nightwing, Robin, Superman. Robin is like one of my favorite cosplays. I made that cosplay from scratch. I made everything on that cosplay, and it just like reminds me of like when I was a kid. I used to like dress up. I used to tie like a yellow sweatshirt around my neck, red t-shirt, had my green like undies, and I would run around the house as Robin. I never cared to be Batman. I wanted to be Robin.
I was the same way. It was always Robin for me. I have a little brother, and he would always have to be Batman, and I'd be Robin, and I'm like,
My
I'm
little
gonna
brother
have
was
to-
Batman too, and you would think you'd be the older brother that's Batman, but I'm like, you're
No, it's always
Batman.
got to be
I'm
Robin. I always identified with Robin as a gay kid. I was always just into just. I grew up watching the Adam West shows, like the reruns and stuff, and then when we
Same.
finally got Chris O'Donnell as Robin, it's funny to see nowadays so many people go, was this the moment that everybody else turned gay too? And it's always like just these pictures of Chris O'Donnell and his Robin gear. And it's just really funny to hear people go, yes, I remember realizing I must be gay because Chris O'Donnell. And I'm always responding, I already knew. This just really reaffirmed it. That's all it did. That was like the gay awakening for a lot of people was Chris O'Donnell in the 90s just, oh my gosh, am I gay? I'm like, I knew. But yes, now I definitely know.
Yeah, I mean, they had like nipples on the body armor.
I mean, and then also the fact that Joel Schumacher was a gay director, which, obviously as a child, I didn't know that. And now as an adult, I'm like, of course he was. And
I mean, the camp, like Poison Ivy, and just like, it was, I feel like it was a movie for us.
I agree. And if there's anything gays know, obviously it's camp.
Yes. Which I wanted to bring up with Agatha. I agree with like Darcie and Dylan about like the appeal of Agatha with the gay community, but also I have to say it's the camp. Like just that like last scene, the camp of it all, I was like, she's gonna be a gay icon. And then I go on Twitter, I'm like, yeah, with all the memes, I'm like,
Oh my
she's
God.
already there.
I saw like the funniest tweet at one point where like it was something like when like gay men, when they watch like women do things in shows that are sociopathic, they're just like, yes, work. And I was just like, very Agatha. Like, don't get me wrong, I love her. I think she was great, but I just watched this happen and I'm like, of course she's a gay icon, of course.
I know, we all thought it was Wanda. Ha ha ha, no.
Wanda tried. Wanda's lovely, but Agatha won.
I had a moment actually to talk about representation with WandaVision with the twins. That was the first moment that we have a Marvel Cinematic Universe showing of a gay character of Wiccan. We all know who he is, and it was just this moment and we're going, wow, it finally happens. Like we have like an actual gay character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it took me a minute to go, I can't believe it's taken this long. But well worth the wait. Like if it was gonna be anything, it was WandaVision that was gonna give it to us, which we all kind of hoped.
I'll have to say like what an important like moment too, because like he's like represented as a child too. So for all those like kids growing up and like seeing this like gay kid in like a mainstream show is it's pretty amazing.
It's like how Amanda was saying with her daughter, how she has all this representation now, and there's so much, God, kids just have it. There's so much great stuff for kids nowadays. I'm a little bit jealous, which is why I still watch cartoons. Like during the pandemic, I got into Steven Universe, and my God, the beauty of that show, I was sleeping on. I was blown away by that type of representation. It was beautifully done. And I don't know if any of you have also either seen it, but it was amazingly, amazingly done. Do you watch it, Amanda, with your daughter?
She watches it some, yeah. But I mean, you're right. There's so much. There's this little kid show, The Loud House, where like just like casually his best friend has two dads and one of his sisters is a lesbian, and there's like whole episodes about her like getting up the courage to ask this girl she likes out on a date, for like not because it's a girl, but just because like she's nervous about a crush. And I'm just like this is and like Disney now has Owl House, which is a cartoon with a bisexual lead who like goes to a dance with another girl. I'm like, a Disney cartoon for little kids. I'm blown away. My daughter, again, she has two moms, her best friend has two dads. She's like, yeah, I watch this all the time. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I love how normal it is for them. Like to them, it's just the norm. For us, we were just always praying. I'm like, can I just see a gay character like at a cartoon on a TV show? And here, like, these kids have it, and I love seeing that. I love seeing that.
I mean, we were just desperate for like
let's
something coded.
Oh,
No, I
exactly.
was gonna say, yeah, like just like a little wink, a little like double entendre, like not even just like a full.
Like, I remember in the 90s watching Boy Meets World, and remember in the 90s, it was a thing. You could tell if a guy was gay depending on the ear that was pierced. Remember? I don't even know if that was ever really a real thing, but I remember watching Boy Meets World and seeing, I think it was Eric Matthews' character had a piercing, and I remember thinking, oh, does that mean he's gay? It was just those little coded things you were always looking for. I want to come back to Dylan. You being in the podcasting, and I know it can be very competitive. A lot of voices popped up last year during the pandemic, as you said. How do you just keep it going? You know, there's lots of voices out there, and I get to listen to your podcast. I love listening to your podcast actually while I clean. That's when I do most of my podcast listening, because it's like listening to someone else talk in the room. What are your motivations to keep going? Because you're such a fan of X-Men, and there's just constant materials coming out. Like, I think on the last episode I heard you were like, a lot of comics came out last week for X-Men. I think there was like 6, 7 issues, and we're going to talk about all of them.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there is a lot of X-Men podcasts out there, and there's a lot of gay X-Men podcasts too. And when I started my Facebook group, I didn't intend for it to be like a gay X-Men group, but it became that. And I think it's like one of the most gayest X-Men Facebook groups that's out there. But we just try to have fun and love with everybody. And I just try to make the podcast be like that too. We love having our gay and straight creators on, and there is a lot of gay X-Men podcasts out there, but I feel like they aren't as maybe welcoming as I try to be, or as gay as I try to be. I try to have just as many gay creators on, or LGBT friendly creators on. It's especially why I wanted to have Darcie on our show, because me and my co-host, we actually try to go like back and forth between straight and gay guests. So, and like our very first guest that we had on was a famous cosplayer and drag queen, Dax. So we just try to have fun and make sure that everybody knows that we are focused on the comics, but we're super gay too. So yeah.
What are some of your other podcasts that you like to listen to personally?
Well,
that are gay. I meant to say. I'm sorry, I forgot. That are gay.
I mean, I like to listen to a lot of the, I guess people would say they might be my competitors, but I like to listen to other gay X-Men podcasts like X Reads Podcast and Comic Book Queers and Homo Superior. So yeah, I like to listen to them, and all of them are super gay too. So
I love that you call them your competitors. I don't see it that as that. I feel like it's more colleagues. I love when you guys do the crossovers and it's like a person from each of them. That was really fun.
Yeah, I don't consider them my competitors, but I think a lot of people do. And yeah, this past summer, I want to say and give credit to the Homo Superior podcast. They actually started this crossover where there was 5 X-Men podcasts, and I think one of them was a straight host. But it was just trying to show that we aren't competing against each other. We're all incredibly different, even though we're all gay. We have a whole lot of different tastes and ways that we do shows, and yeah.
If you could have anybody on your podcast to interview, who would you have?
I don't know. That's a question I can't answer off the top of my head. I would love to have the writer Vita Ayala. They are a non-binary writer at Marvel right now. They're writing New Mutants for Marvel, and I just love them because they're writing some pretty amazing characters like Moonstar and Warpath. So yeah, I would like to have Vita.
I love that you say that you can't think of anybody and then you gave me someone right away.
There's so many, but Vita's on top of the list.
I had a list that I was making earlier that I wanted to talk about actually because you brought up binary, non-binary. There's a whole list that I made and I don't know what I did with it because I was trying to be prepared. But Amanda was also saying earlier about the Arrowverse shows. You know, there's been so much representation there, you know, between the character of Curtis being a Black gay man on Arrow, and then we've got, you know, Kate Kane, who is the lesbian on Batwoman, who has been replaced with oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name, but we have now the beautiful Batwoman. What's her name, Amanda?
Oh God, no, don't put me on the spot because I don't remember her name either. And
I know.
Oh my God.
Ryan Wilder. That's her name. That's her name. She's playing the character Ryan Wilder of the bisexuality, and I loved that representation. And I was worried about, like, you know, the transition. And I think in the very first episode, they really sold her. Like, I bought it. And it was the moment when she was talking about the statistics and the numbers. And she was talking about, she's like, and this is the number I can't live with. I was like, this is what I'm here for. And then we've also got, you know, Nyssa on Black Lightning, a Black lesbian who's so strong. The character is so strong. You're right. They really have just shown us such quite diversity. And one of my favorite ones I have to say is Nia Nal as the first trans superhero on television or in film, basically in film. And now we have a new non-binary Flash that has been popping up in the DC Future State thing. And I was so surprised when they did that because I don't know why I'm surprised all the time to see more representation, but it gets me. It never gets old, you know, that moment of I'm seen, my friends are seen, people are being seen. It's just so great. My question for you, Amanda, is when are you going to write an episode of Batwoman?
Oh my God, I would love to. So put that out into the universe. I would love to.
Come on, DC.
And I especially like the transition, you know, that's a tricky thing, changing over your main character in a show. And they did it so well, and they've handled, you know, instead of like pretending like it didn't happen, like they've handled like acknowledging, you know, that Kate Kane is no longer there and still having the people in her life. And like I just thought they've done it beautifully, and it's allowing them to tackle some really important like social justice issues that they weren't able to before. And they've done beautifully. Like I've noticed like the writing has elevated like just in these couple of episodes since the transition had happened. And it's made me really, really excited.
It's been really, I was worried about how they were going to handle it, and it's been really, really well done. And you're exactly right that the writing has been elevated. It's every week I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just, it's so engaging. And it's funny, I think of the stepsister, how at first I was like in the first few episodes of the first season, like, oh, she is annoying. And now I'm just like, she's the one.
Her arc has been phenomenal. Like they really just like went all the way from like, oh, maybe she's just like an entitled airhead to like, no, she's awesome.
I know. I love it. She's like, you don't know how to do this? Move. Darcie, I want to talk about your book a little bit as well. I know we got some time. Your story of Elatsoe, tell me a little bit about how you really put yourself into that character and for the representation for other asexuals out there.
Yeah, and that's something. So Elatsoe is about a teenage girl. She's Lip-on Apache. She's also asexual, and she says it in the book, like just a brief mention. But I did want to put in the text that she's asexual so that there's, you know, no ambiguity, and that people can see themselves represented in a concrete way. But I do get this question, why did you choose to make her asexual? And I think it's because people don't know that I'm asexual, and I'm engaged to another asexual native who, by the way, is a cosplayer. They do Cassandra from Dragon Age, Luke Skywalker. So it's really, really cool stuff. I encourage y'all to check out those photos.
I love Dragon Age.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh my gosh. I've had to stop myself from playing any new Dragon Age games because I know I'd get no work done. I love it so much. But yeah, so this character is going through an adventure that's a fantasy mystery. There's not a lot of focus. She's just very, you know, she's happy with who she is. There's not a lot of dwelling on her asexuality, but she is an asexual character. And I don't see that very often, not just in young adult books, but in fantasy and science fiction books in general. So I do think that's one reason why it was important that I did this. And yeah, in terms of representation, I was trying to think earlier, your question about like media where you've seen a lot of yourself represented. And I'm struggling to think of many asexual characters. I know they're out there, but I tend to see myself represented in more different ways, such as like on the science side. Like I was thinking of how I really associate with Peridot, and like in my head, oh, she can be ace, but you know, it's not explicit. But yeah, I have just been very, very happy getting feedback from especially teenage readers who say I'm asexual and I love Elatsoe. I love this character who is able to just go on this adventure and have the power of ghost animals and just do all these things. And she's also ace like me. So that's been really cool. A really great part of publishing is just getting that feedback from young readers and adult readers too.
That's so amazing. You know, I saw that Time said that your novel Elatsoe was one of the best 100 fantasy novels.
Yes.
What is that like to be included in that kind of recognition where it's that visibility of my asexual character is here, right here?
I want to say real quick before Darcie answers that, they named her novel one of the 100 best fantasy books of all time, not of just like the year, of all time. That is amazing.
Yeah, honestly,
Wow.
I'm still blown away by that. First of all, because the jury is full of so many sci-fi, fantasy, other writers I really respect. So it's just so cool that they read this book. And when that came out, I actually found 4 copies of the Time magazine that had it in it. I bought them all for me. It's like, these are mine now. But yeah, it's just been, I'm just happy that my debut has been so positive. Like in an otherwise very difficult year, just this support has been really wonderful. And hopefully it does encourage other writers to know that just because stories like that aren't out there now doesn't mean that readers aren't hungry for them. And your stories, like whether you're a native writer, an asexual writer, or any writer, you know, people like to read these.
I'm really, really, like I said, excited to read my copy. When I got it in yesterday, I was like, yes, I was so excited. Let me actually show it.
Oh my gosh,
Awesome.
it's the book with art by Rovina Kai, who is amazing.
A beautiful, this is beautiful artwork.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
thank you.
Absolutely. And of course, a beautiful.
It's me. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. It's me.
So I know you have some NDAs, but is there anything you can give us about any of your upcoming comic book writing?
No, but I am doing it. That's what I can give you. Soon, hopefully.
If you could write any comic book, any character like you write the stories for, who would it be?
I jokingly say Aquaman because I'm an oceanographer, but I think I'd really make him like Plankton way too much. So probably Zatanna, honestly. I've always loved just how creative her magic is.
Zatanna is amazing. Amanda, same question to you. You've gotten to write Teen Titans Go, DC Superhero Girls, which is, I know is amazing for your daughter, like, because I know she loves it. Who, if you could just like write a comic book series of any character, who would it be?
Probably Poison Ivy, just because that was an early love of mine. And I would love to just like really lean into like the queer elements with Harley Quinn, obviously. But I would say Poison Ivy, just because I love her on so many levels and always have. And then Batwoman, because I super love Batwoman. But I feel like very fortunate that I've gotten to write a lot of characters that I really love. I mean, the first thing I ever did for DC was Wonder Woman, which was such an incredible way to start that I felt like I had already like won getting to write comic book.
I know Wonder Woman is just honestly, she's been the representation for so many. Also, let's talk about Linda Carter being, the gay icon for so many young gay men, and just a strong character for women. And I love your rainbow Wonder Woman shirt. And I know Kat loves Wonder Woman. Do you think there's ever going to be a day that we get that representation of Wonder Woman where it is blatantly said?
I don't know. I mean, like, if I could, like, really fantasy world, I'd love to do like a Themyscira series, like just like go straight into the Amazons and like just stay there. Like that would be like my true, I guess that's my actual answer for what I would want to do if I could do anything. And really play in that world where it's just Paradise Island and it's just the women and it's just, strong warriors.
That would be amazing. I asked these two questions to you and Darcie because I do believe in the power of manifestation. So throwing it out into the universe, people, let's make this happen. Yes, yes. All right, I know we're getting close to the end. I don't really have any more questions for you guys, but is there anything that anybody would like to mention or discuss about anything positives that have come out of this last year? Let's talk about the positives out of the last year, actually. Because a lot of this time, I feel, has been like a transforming time for a lot of us, the chrysalis, all of that. Let's start with you, Jeff. Let's talk about some good things.
I think something I've noticed about this year, I think, is just we're forced to spend so much time with ourselves to where it really makes us think about, ourselves and our identities. So I've known so many people actually who have come to the conclusion and realized like they're non-binary, myself included. So like it's been wonderful to like really like stop and think about that and kind of have a realization, because otherwise in like the world before where we were just constantly busy all the time, like didn't have as much time just like kind of be with yourself and think about it. So it's an unfortunate like side effect that we do have to be at home all the time, but there are like some nice things that do come from it like that. So I think getting to think about our identities has been a wonderful little thing.
Congratulations to you also on that, coming to that realization. I know that those kind of things are always a big journey to get to. So mazel tov and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How about you, Dylan? I know you started your podcast this last year, but what else for you has been good this last year?
I just want to say getting to know more of the people who are in my Facebook group and who listen to the podcast. I've connected more with them because I've had more time to message with them and hear their feedback about my podcast. And oddly enough, I just want to say, and it kind of has to deal with Darcie, having her on as a guest. This past year, Marvel had the comic book, the Marvel Indigenous Voices, where everything in it was written by Indigenous people, Native Americans, and so forth. And for me, I have a little bit of Indigenous in me, and my grandmother's mom was 100% Indigenous. And doing the podcast, me and my co-host tried to get every single creator that we could from that book on our podcast, and we got about 5 or 6 of them, and I think there was only like 8 of them. It's helped me want to learn more about my grandmother's mom, and so I've been looking more into my Indigenous ancestry, so I'm finding out more about myself in that way.
That is so awesome. I can't wait to see where you go with that journey. And how about you, Darcie?
I'm just gonna second just making connections with so many people virtually, like doing the podcast House of X was just amazing. And just all these sorts of virtual panels, meeting all of you has been one of the silver linings to this year is you connect with people you might not necessarily have been with in person, going to conferences in, for example, the United States. Also, we are back to planning our wedding after delaying it twice. So what we're doing is we're going to have like this massive wedding in 2020. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So we've delayed the big one for 2022. we're doing a really small traditional wedding, me and T. So that's been the one thing when I just need something positive to think about. I just think about how wonderful it's going to be to take like my mom and my brother to finally meet T's family on their homeland. I'll say that that has also been one little joy this very difficult year, just thinking of the future and how things are going to be better.
That is so great. I can't wait to see the photos of the wedding. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
There are going to be so many photos.
And how about you, Luigi? What are some good things that came out this last year? I know it's been hard for you because you didn't get a chance to go to any conventions, and I know you travel a lot, usually for conventions as well.
Yeah, so that definitely sucked. But being home like with my like husband 24/7, it's been nice to like kind of like in a way reconnect, because like I was gone a lot. He didn't get home till like, because he's also working from home now, so he wouldn't get home till like 9 p.m. So like we just like, you know, it was like, and now we're like together 24/7. So it's been really nice to like kind of like reconnect with each other, and like, you know, we like have lunch together, wake up and have breakfast together, like just you know, we have like definitely more of a like deeper connection now, which is like nice. So but I definitely do miss friends. I haven't I've only seen like one friend since like the pandemic, but I haven't seen any of my other friends. I haven't. So yeah, that's like all tough, but you know, I'm just like, I think 2022 is going to be the year where we like get to do things again.
Here's hoping. Oh my gosh, here's hoping.
Yes.
All right, and Amanda, we're going to finish this off with you. Give me some good news about what's happened with you this last year.
Well, I mean, similarly, I get a lot of extra time with my wife and daughter because I do sometimes work on film and television sets, and that's usually very long hours, which I haven't had this last year. So lots of family time, which has been nice. I've learned that I can teach virtual kindergarten and try to work from home at the same time. So my multitasking skills are up. And I've also been trying to just like do some things for myself creatively, and not just like the gigs that, you know, like the work that I'm doing that I also love, but that like pays the bills. So like on the side, I've been writing the lesbian rom-com that I want to see in the world, and, you know, just challenging myself to like do projects that are just strictly for me, to bring myself joy, things that I like to write. And that's been a nice perk of the year.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. I just want to say thank you again to everybody that came to the panel. It was so great getting to see your faces. I know some of you have not get seen in so long. I will say that it's one of the great things that did come out this last year is feels like the 90s again, where, you know, if you made a plan with somebody, you had to stick to it. So now making time to Zoom with everyone, you can't be like, oh, I've got things going on. Girl, I know you're at home. I know you're at home. Get on the Zoom. And it's been a great experience getting to develop some of those, I think, friendships and relationships this last year. Thank you all again so much for coming. I miss you all so dearly. I can't wait till we can all get back together again. Again, everybody, we've got Amanda Deibert, we've got SuperXLuigi, Dr. Darcie Little Badger, Jeff Brutlag, and Dylan Carter. Thank you guys again all so much. And I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your WonderCon at home. And until we can all see each other again, stay safe.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.